Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, to today's stream where I have a good friend of mine by the name of Mike. It's just Mike from Uprise Recording, and we are going to talk about the importance of creativity and how to really tap into your creative endeavors or pursuits. I know this might be a little off topic for my brand, but for anyone who's done coaching with me before, anyone who's a member of my private community, you'll know that I always bring home the fact that it is important to do something creative in the sense that you need to take something that you visually identify in your brain and put it out there in the world into something tangible. So in today's stream, we'll more specifically be talking about the creative aspect of music. So Mike, let's go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you up to? And then we'll start getting into your Batman origin story.
Sounds good. Hey guys, my name is Mike, and I do music for a living. Really amazing job. I'm out of Sacramento, California. I have a studio here where we record musicians, and I guess it just kind of, for a short origin story, I wanted to do skateboarding. And, you and I talked about this, Jaron. And I got into a gnarly skateboard accident, and I was like, that's not for me. I'm going to do something a little less dangerous. So 5 years later, I'm here making music for other people and doing pretty much everything media. And it's amazing. So does that answer everything?
Oh, we're going to dig deeper. So let's go into what got you into music. So, you'll hear stories of famous musicians, and an example I use, you're on the West Coast. So I listened to Adam Carolla all growing up, and he always gave this example, was that Tommy Lee, as a kid, you'll ask his parents or his friends, was like, oh, as a 3-year-old, he'd pull the pots and pans out and he was laying down drum beats or whatever. He was always banging on something, and they could tell that he had that nascent talent, and then really all they had to do was develop it. So was that sort of how you started out? How'd you get into music and then get really into it? Because a lot of people have it just as a passing or fleeting idea to where, I'd like to do music someday, or like maybe they're in choir or band or orchestra or whatever, but you leaned into it. So let's walk through that process.
Yeah, to be totally honest, my whole family on my mom and dad's side is pretty musical. My grandma taught me a little piano lessons when I was younger, and my mom would sing with me when I was younger, and that just carried over. And from singing in church to playing the piano at home, I just picked it up. But I didn't really start doing it professionally until I was in my early 20s, So.
And were you formally trained? Did you do piano lessons or anything? Or you just kind of had the natural ear already and you could just put it out?
I'm sure I was taught, when I was younger, but it didn't really stick. And I played guitar, and that was really hard to assimilate with piano because the way you play it is so different. I'm sure you play guitar.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just by ear. Years and years of playing by ear, and then you can eventually just play what you want to hear.
Do you have any classical training, or did you do any music theory or anything? Or were you always able to go by ear? Because I've always gone by ear. I probably should learn the theory side of it. I think it might make me better, but my ear has really never led me astray.
I agree. Mostly by ear. I've done little courses, maybe online courses, but the more that you do production and studio recordings, the more it kind of springs itself on you, especially when you start working.
You can visualize it now.
Yeah, especially when you start working with hip hop, auto-tune, and pop music. Everyone's auto-tuned nowadays. So you learn scales, you learn theory, and you learn the best way to make someone sound good while keeping in the scale. So that's most of the classical training that I do, along with just hearing.
I've never done auto-tune. When you and I meet up next, we'll have to try that out. My vocal coach, she's a bit of a traditionalist in the sense that she's like, no, you need to hit the right damn note with your own voice before you even think about doing any of that stuff, which is good because I really do enjoy acoustic music, and I have a big, beautiful, open living room / studio. We're converting into a studio, hardwood floors, big, very, very live space. So Mexican buildings in general, they're very live. There's usually like sweet acoustic spots in every room. So I've identified those in my place, and just an acoustic guitar and me, you can really light the place up.
Oh yeah. No, I obviously there's an importance to being a good raw vocalist. I mean, I try to get my takes the best I can, and then at the end, you know, everyone will do it. So whether
Mhm.
it's your favorite pop punk band or someone at the top of the pop charts, they're using autotune on the final product because that's the recording. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear
It's
you live
polished.
yeah, they'll go see you live if they want to hear you live. So I think it's important to use it, incorporate it when it's necessary, but not to just oversaturate your product with autotune. That's crazy.
Yeah, now I'm excited to look into it because I've never heard myself in that application, so to speak, or applied any sort of
Mm,
auto tuner filters. And again, I'm finally getting to the point where I like the sound of my own voice. I record all my practice sessions and I try to listen back critically. Sometimes we're our own worst critics, but I've laid down some tracks lately to where like, okay, these like I could actually listen to this. So I'm really excited to eventually get up there and lay down some tracks and see what we can't do. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
segueing a bit forward. So got into music, tried the skateboard thing, gnarly accident, so
Yeah.
to use your words. And how'd that get back into music? I'm assuming that you spent some time skateboarding. That was probably the pipe dream, to be punny, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously the accident that didn't happen. So now you had some hours left in your day, right? So did you just lean? Was music just the backup type thing, or did you accidentally fall into it, or did someone pull you into it, or maybe explain that process a bit?
Yeah, I actually, before I started playing music, I had never played any instruments. You know, I sang along in the car to my favorite songs, but my aunt gave me a guitar. It's a really old Spanish guitar from Spain, handmade. And
Was it classic
yeah, it
nylon?
was classical
Yeah,
nylon strings and it's
that was
really
my first guitar
bulky.
too. An old
Oh,
classic
nice.
guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, really bulky, really hard to play. You know, the neck was like a log, and uh, I just I was bedridden for about 6 months, honestly, when it first happened. Vertigo was so bad, I was so dizzy all the time, I had just enough energy to crawl back and forth to the bathroom, and, you know, my food was brought to me, my grandma took care of me, bless her heart. But, yeah, I was all I would do is play guitar and sleep. So, I got really good in about 6 months and started doing recordings, and that naturally led to other friends wanting to have a recording done too because I was the only guy with like a little USB microphone in the neighborhood. And after that, it
No, I've got a full audio interface now. My first mic was yeah. You start off somewhere. USB.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, everyone starts with that one. But yeah, and eventually my friends' friends started paying me to do mixes, and um, I won't lie, I got a little bit comfortable. My dad, he was like, "Hey, come with me. Let's go look for a spot. You like studio stuff so much." And he had kind of made a deal with a landlord in downtown Sacramento without telling me. He's like, "Oh, I got you a space. All right, good luck. Make it work." And so I would at that point I was still kind of like recuperating from this accident. Uh, Save the space that my dad had signed a contract with another landlord. That was like my house. So I was living out of the studio, and you know, it was like really sink or swim, and I'm really grateful to my dad for that. But yeah, after a while it just took over, and I had to do music every single day. Like I couldn't do anything else because that was all that I was able to do. I didn't want to go back to working normal jobs, working, you know, retail, fast food, whatever it was that my earlier jobs were. I could never go back.
No, I've seen you've produced some tracks of yourself too. So have you always been a recording artist, or were you ever touring, or did any sort of live type stuff, or just kind of whatever comes up?
Yeah, yeah, whatever comes up. Like I have a ton of friends that are into music, a ton of bands that do touring, traveling, um, various, you know, groups that are just coming from tour to record in town. They'll hit me up, and I'm just a local spot to record. And you know, whether it's them wanting me to get on tracks or doing live shows, I've probably been on like thousands of tracks at this point.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I gotta
Yeah.
get into that. I always had the musical itch when I was a kid, but I grew up in a family to where academia and athletics were important. No one cared about the arts at all, so that was never really
Mhm.
nurtured or anything. I got kind of noodled around on the guitar since I was a kid. Never really took it seriously or anything, and then got locked down in California during COVID. And was like, well, now I have a ton of free hours, which I've never
Mhm.
had in my entire life. So what do I do? And went and bought a new guitar and started playing around. And then I've been doing vocal lessons for a little more than a year now, and turns out like, oh yeah, there's something to this. I do have the talent, so now it's just nurturing that and developing it. Although I'm a bit older to do it, it was always been a hobby. But again, you and I've been talking about putting something together, so I've got a working doc right now. I'll present the concept and the track list and all that. We can get rolling on it. But so
Absolutely.
so so walk me through, what does your creative process look like if you're putting together an individual track or an album, or if a buddy hits you up like me, like, hey, let's do this? What do
Mhm.
those next steps look like?
Well, it was a shot in the dark the first couple tracks, like the first many tracks, you'll have a really miscellaneous melody line that you'd pick out on the piano, and then you add your kick drum and stuff. But the more you do it, like I said, I've produced thousands of songs, thousands and thousands, and you get this pattern that sets up where you have, I always start with something that's a melody, or like a motor is what they call it. It's something that can repeat every 4 bars or 8 bars, however long you want it. And that drives the song because there's that certain level of predictability that the listener really wants to hear.
Okay, all
And
my music does that. It's pretty simple, but you
yeah,
kind of layer
and
on
they can
top
be
of it.
simple
Yeah.
or intricate. Um, I think of all the major pop songs have it, and listening to pop music helps a lot too. But they just have this hook line that catches you. That's where I'll usually start on, because if you have something good like that, then the listener will stay longer than 30 seconds. If you have an intro that's too long to a song, they'll leave or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'll be at this point where I almost have most of the song put together before I even start writing lyrics, because I start with kind of a raw emotion, put some instruments together that portray that emotion, and then I'll write to it afterward. Just it could be any sort of experience, but that's when you start using rhyme dictionary and
Uh-huh.
all that other stuff. But yeah, it'll build itself after you get the motor running, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, my process is kind of the opposite. I mentioned the pre-show that I've always been a lucid dreamer since I was a little kid. So I'll dream in
Hmm.
music and then wake myself up and quickly get the musical idea down. So I have hundreds of these little miscellaneous voice notes. So I remember watching. Oh, what was it? What was the name of the documentary? Was it Get Back, the Beatles documentary? I think it was on Hulu.
Hmm.
Um, and I believe, and I've watched like plenty of Paul and John interviews to where a lot of the classical songwriters, they'll say like, start with a melody. It's all melody driven. Like, okay, well, I can start with the melody, but then I don't know what to do from there in terms of like actually putting some music behind it. So we
The
we, we
second
might
verse
have
is
some.
always the hardest too, especially once you start writing.
Well, a lot of times, like, yeah, I'll start to kind of figure it out on the guitar, and then it'll be a first verse, and then I'll
Hmm.
just kind of repeat the first verse, and then improvise for a few minutes, and then like, okay, or I don't know how to end a lot of times too. I'll get
Hmm.
into it, I'll play around, I'll kind of get lost in the music, come back, and then I'm like, all right, I'm tired. How do I end this thing? Like I'm in it now.
Yeah, music is really powerful that way. Like you can get a really, I don't know how much of the emotion you get on with it, but like you can be in this like hyper focused state of mind when you're writing something. Like, oh, I'm feeling this type of way, and this is the music that I'm like hearing when I feel this. And then um you really get into that moment. But then where do I go with it? Where do I go with it? That's the
Mhm.
hardest part for me. And it's just I think of it in the like little blocks. I'll think of like, here's a verse right here, here's a chorus, here's another verse,
Mhm.
chorus, and then I kind of just piece them together one piece at a time. But inspiration comes and goes. But if you can just stick to a kind of a brutal structure of like bar by bar, chorus by chorus, verse by verse, it's
Yep.
a little easier.
I'm working on that now with my vocal coach in terms of, like I mentioned before, usually when I play, it's at the end of the day. It's just kind of a way to de-stress, decompress. For me, I consider it
Mhm.
meditation too. It does put you into a different frequency, so you can let all that
Mhm.
emotion out throughout the day, and then you just feel really good afterwards. So same as
Yeah.
the gym, but gym, you kind of got to tense. You still have to be focused. You have to be structured. Music, a lot of times I'll start off really structured because I'm very critical of myself and I'm very technical. Like, it has to be perfect, and then
Mhm.
I'll start to let go as I get into the jam session.
Yeah.
And then there's a point where my whole body's vibrating. The instrument no longer feels like an instrument. My fingers don't hurt anymore. It's just an extension of me. That part's really fun, but it's harder for me to write music that way because then I just get lost. I'll start with a progression, and then I'll kind of just get lost in it. And as I mentioned, I'll play around. I'll have the side quests and bring it back to the main narrative. But eventually, it's like, what am I doing with this? Like, I'm in the middle of making music, but I don't know where I'm going or what I want to do, or like, do I just end it? So my vocal coach is really getting on me. She's like, dial it in, structure it out.
Mhm. Yeah. No, no, it's just practice and practice and practice. You'll get really good after a while.
I'm working on that now. Now that we have the album coming down the pike, I was like, all right, now I'm going to get really technical, whip out my notebooks, which I haven't done forever, like actually structure everything. How is this going to come together? And then just practice, 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 and hone it in. As I was mentioning, I think in the pre-show to you, that it's
Mhm.
nice because now that there's a goal on the top of my mind, it's like, okay, now I can take it seriously. Not like I didn't before, but I did the same thing in the gym. I achieved the physique I like, that I want to maintain 7 or 8 years ago. So how do I
Mhm.
keep myself from getting sloppy? Well, schedule photo shoots or go to rooftop events to where I have to have my shirt off, or beach events or destination weddings. Like, okay, so that if you sprinkle in enough those objectives during the year, then I'm just kind of not fat all year round. So like, all right, maybe I should start
Yeah.
doing that with music here too.
No, and yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've also noticed is it helps to write it down. Like you said, you have an
Yep.
interface now. Record everything you're doing, and
Oh,
when
it's
I
on
get
my
the
phone. Yeah.
itch, yeah, when I get the itch, I'll just record it, and then I'll listen to it in the car a ton, and I'll be like,
I need to do that. I do that in the gym. I log every
oh
single
wow,
training day, and then I put it into a spreadsheet and I run equations so I can see exactly how my body responds to various stimuli. You do that for 20 years, and then it turns out I only have to lift 20 minutes a day because I know exactly what to do. So yeah, I need to get
wow,
another one of
that's
these guys
awesome.
and start doing that with music too. I've got the voice notes. I use the camera as my webcam here, but yeah, I have literally hundreds of musical fragments or ideas, is what my coach calls them. So
That's hella cool,
interesting.
dude.
And
Yeah.
I know people watching, like, we might be getting into a little into the weeds here, but notice how when we talk about it, we both kind of light up. These are fun things. So that's why I wanted to bring home the point that you do want to get into the creative process. If that's not music for you, maybe it's some kind of visual art, maybe it's film production, maybe you don't have a lot of free time, but figure out how to do something to where you turn on that creative side of your personality, because I can't put it into words. It just does something to you. It has you vibrate at a much higher frequency. And then when you're done, you carry that along with you. People ask me all the time, like, why are you always in a good mood? It's like, well, I work out every single day and I play guitar every single day and I have a cool social circle and I live a good life and the weather's perfect. And how would you not be in a good mood if you are living the life that you designed for yourself? So figure out whatever that is to you, what that creative outlet looks like. And a good starting point, if you don't know, is when you were a kid, what were your favorite subjects in school? Or when you were, I grew up pre-internet, so when you were locked in your room for hours at a time, what'd you do? I used to doodle and I used to noodle around on the guitar. So okay, so maybe there's something there.
Mhm.
Again, I'm curious what your take is on that in terms of how to go about finding your creative outlet, or with the musicians you've worked with over the thousands of tracks you've recorded. How do you hone that in to where, like, okay, like, I'm a pianist, but I'm a guitarist, but I kind of want to sing, but I'm a composer, I can arrange too, but I can't really write lyrics. How do you dial that in for people you produce for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lying involved, honestly. I think the first time someone wanted me to like play a piano on a track, I had just used the piano that's on my keyboard. I was like, all right, well, this comes with it and I can do this. And I needed money. So this guy was like, hey, I need someone to compose a classical piece for me. And I was like, I'm an expert at that. I
Oh
got you,
yeah,
bro.
It's like when you're in a job interview. Are you familiar with this platform? Oh yeah, I've got 5 years experience. Day one starts. They're like, you're like, so can I get a login? Can I see the sandbox version so I can play around and like look at the instance to understand how you put it together, aka train myself? And it's always nice. Like, oh yeah, no, you actually don't need to do that. We have a full team that does that. You're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, I kind of faked it till I make it. And I think that's how a lot of success is achieved. It's just you have to create this unruly confidence in yourself, and you have to know that whatever it is you're setting out to do can be done. So when it comes to songwriting and learning different instruments and how things are going to sound, and playing instruments you haven't played before, you just have to know, well, it's the same as learning this other program I learned last year when I didn't know how to do it. Or when you first looked at your interface, when all the buttons and knobs on it and volume changing aspects of recording, it's really convoluted and scary, and it's really daunting to look at it. But once you have that figured out, you can figure out another piece of hardware. Same with the piano. If I have
Oh,
a
that makes
piano,
sense.
I can I'll play a melody, and if I can't play it right away, or if I can't give this guy what he's looking for in the 1 hour time that he's purchased at the studio, I'll give him a little bit of wiggle room, like, hey, I'll work on this on my own time. And then you gain confidence in yourself, and now that you've kind of jumped off the bridge, you force yourself to do this. Like, you're already in it neck deep now,
Yeah.
so you got to learn how to do it. And a little bit of risk taking, but a lot of just knowing that it's going to be all right. Faith, I guess.
I've found the confidence helps out too. So a lot of times I have a very broad vocal range for a male singer. In
Hmm.
fact, I can like get into like some female ranges too. Can't stay up there yet, but I can get up there, and I can hold the high note. And
Nice.
but in my head as I'm going, again, I'll get lost in the music. I'm like, all right, the falsetto's coming. And my coach is really cool. She's helping me kind of iron this out. She's like, you can hit it. You hit it time and time again. And our warm-up exercises, you can get up there. But when I tell myself, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, I always fall short, or I tense up, and then it just falls apart. So
Yeah.
now it's kind of like, all right. Today I mentioned something to her. I played a little bit of American football growing up. Wasn't that good,
Hmm.
but the coaches would always yell, through it, not to it, through it, not to it. So I told her that story. And she's like, yes, do that with your falsettos. Just go for it, because
Yeah.
that's the only way you're going to hit it. And then once you're there, then you're like, oh, okay. And then you kind of relax, like, oh, this is beautiful. And everything's aligned, and it just comes right out of you. But when you're like, oh no,
Every time I
here it
failed,
comes. Yeah.
yeah, every time I'd fail is because I was like too reserved or too shy about a note, and I just didn't commit, and then
Yeah.
you get this
Instead of,
gross mess. Yeah,
uh-huh.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really hold back there, but yeah, before it's like, oh well, I know that I have neighbors here, and what people hear me, or I don't know, and then no, I can
What
do
if they
it.
hear me?
Yeah. It's like
I've
it's
been there.
there. I do it like I
Yeah.
do it every time I warm up. So like,
Hmm.
what's the deal? But yeah, I think confidence is a big thing too. And to tie that into just as people that are looking to embark upon some sort of creative pursuit, whatever that looks like for your particular situation, developing that confidence, because at first you're not going to be good. You mentioned your first tracks.
Oh
In
yeah.
your head, you're probably like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to be like the next big recording artist,
We're
and
going
then
all the way to the top.
you listen back thousands of cuts later, you're like, oh, good Lord, what was I thinking?
Oh yeah, it's always funny to listen to your old music. I mean, yeah, everything you do when you first start sucks. Every creative
Mhm.
endeavor is gonna just be so bad like a year from now. I remember the first couple sessions I did, I like cried after this session. These guys just ate me alive. Real artists coming in, and they just ate my mix alive. Bro,
Like,
you
who
ever
are
even done
you?
this before, bro? What are you even doing, bro? And I was just like, oh, I got you, bro. And that's so normal, and it's so part of the process. But yeah, going back to confidence and just knowing that this is not like a really like when you're starting at something creative, that's not a really accurate representation of how good you're going to be at it. So you just got to go at it.
I think it's a constant process of reiteration too. I even read somewhere that like Beyonce still learns things about her voice on the daily. She still
Hmm.
has vocal coaches and trainers, or even, greatest of all time, Tom Brady. I remember a documentary they did on him years ago. He's like, all right, well, I'm 99% of the way there, but I'm going to spend all off season trying to squeak out that 0.1% extra performance. And like, team of coaches and traveling to different countries with different training methodologies. And like, okay, so you're never gonna be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. There's the ideal that you set out for yourself. But sometimes that goalpost shifts too. But it's really just about, I think, the process more than anything. And again, I always had the idea in my head, like, oh, I want to do some kind of musical stuff. Never did it. And then I've been at it for a few years now, and just every day I look forward to it. And it adds so much more color to my life. Again, that was music for me. Sounds like it was skateboarding for you at first. And then it was music for me. Again, my family, athletics and academics were very important. No one really gave a shit about arts or anything. So I was a really good student academically. I wasn't athletically gifted like my brothers were. And then as an adult, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to lean into this music thing. Like, oh yeah, well, there's something there. Yeah, it just kind of lights you up, turns you on.
No, it feels good, man. I mean, to go back to your point, you were talking about reiteration and improvement through, developing and confidence. They go hand in hand too by just, I don't know, every time that there was something that I didn't think I could do that I practiced on and got better at, it made like 12 new avenues where, oh yeah, I've done that before. This is literally the same thing. I can totally do that. So practice, confidence, and I don't want to trail off too much, but yeah,
my conversations deviate a bit. Like I said, like my compositions. I'm in the middle of the song. Like I started somewhere and I had an ending point. I don't know where I'm at now. How do I bring it back home?
Sometimes I just start a sentence hoping that it'll find a pathway.
Yeah, it's like a Bohemian Rhapsody, but conversation. It's like 8 songs in one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean,
here, let's see. I got a comment here. Yeah, so let's go a little more into pop punk. So, would you consider yourself a pop punk artist? I checked out some of your stuff. Seems like you have quite a bit of range too. I know that's the title, so yeah, we might have to change that based on what the actual topic of the conversation. You always need a working title. It's like YouTube. I don't know what the topic's going to be. We're just going to let it roll. But pop punk. Let's go ahead and comment on that. How'd you get into it? Do you consider yourself a pop punk artist? And we do have a comment in the chat. Who is your favorite pop punk artist?
Oh, I don't know the names. I just like the songs. No, I'm kidding.
I'm the same way. People I watch a lot of movies. I don't know. I can't recall any movie that I've ever seen, but like I like them. I enjoy them.
No, I mean more than anything, it's the feel of it. Like, to name a couple of bands that I really like, obviously Blink-182 was really influential in just the overall vibe that I wanted to go for. Once I started getting good at articulating the musical ideas I wanted. So yeah, Blink-182. I liked, the skateboarding soundtracks, Tony Hawk's soundtrack.
I was just going to say that. Those are so good.
Yeah, super good artists on there. Open me up to, like, I mean, I'd say, yeah, Tony Hawk soundtracks, Dave Mirra BMX soundtracks. Like, a lot of those were the soundtrack to like my whole childhood.
Like late 90s Vans Warped Tour. I think that was kind of
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of trademark of that Southern California kind of skateboard culture sound. I didn't grow up in California, but I lived there most of my adult life. So there is a vibe in California. I grew up outside of Seattle, actually. So when people ask about people ask about grunge, I'm like, grunge sounds like how it feels to live in Seattle. So yes,
true. No, I actually grew up in Mission Viejo, which is in Southern California. It's just south of LA, between San Diego and LA. And oh man, super great place to grow up. And
I bet that was a vibe during that time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you're in that same weather, where you live now.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico City now. There's some good sounds around here. The rock scene's not like where it was 20 years ago. They're kind of falling more into degeneracy culture, just like the U.S. Like it's like reggaeton and shit like that. But I lived down here 20 years ago, and the rock scene was lit. Oh my god, it was so good. These Mexican rock bands from like, even, I mean, South America had some good rock bands in like the 80s, early 90s. I think Mexico from like late 80s, early 90s, all the way to the mid to late like 2010s. Amazing, just amazing music down here. Now you go out and it's all kind of noise.
No worries. Are you going back just to if we're going through comments, let's see.
Yeah, you know what? I only see the comments, I think, on my channel here on StreamYard. So yeah, if there's more comments, I'm looking at my Instagram live too. So I have a couple. One of my cousins asked you, "You're doing an album?" Like, yeah, it looks like it. So I got the running doc put together. So we'll start fleshing out a concept, and then I'll have to put together a practice schedule and actually take that seriously. So someone asked too, when you going back on Rich's streams, I've ventured away from those types of topics. Yeah, there's still some crossover and some overlap because I talk about the abroad lifestyle, and inevitably a lot of my audience comes from that audience to where like, hey, talk about dating Latinas or whatever. So you'll see some more of that on my channel. But I got to the point where it seemed like I spent years doing that kind of content, and it felt like it was kind of just holding me back. That it served a time and place when I needed that in my personal evolution, but then I wasn't evolving from there, if that makes sense. So like now, like I'm not really interested in like manosphere, red pill topics or any of that stuff. I'm interested in music and Mexico and more kind of creating a social life and business, and those things are occupying my thought space at the time. So I needed to allow myself the space to evolve by leaving former groups or content collaborations behind. But that doesn't mean there's any ill will or anything of that nature. It was just creative differences. I think he was taking his brand in a different direction, and I wanted to completely redo my brand and then take it into a new direction as well. So wish those guys the best of luck.
It's easy to kind of talk about certain topics also when you're in an area where that needs improvement too.
Yeah.
Like I don't see you as someone who needs to absorb a ton of that content, to be totally honest, anyways.
I never really needed to. I think I had like a rough breakup and I found my way to it. But now I'm like, I don't even think about that. I just that part of my life has been taken care of for so long that it's just a part of who I am.
No, I mean, I went through there too, and that's how I started listening to your stuff too. Is like I listened to Rich and those other guys on the Manosphere and stuff, and I was at this point where I was just kind of, you open your eyes a little bit, you do a lot of research on it, and then you get to this point where you're like, all right, cool, I'm like at this happy medium where I have game and I go to the gym, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I put out 100% authentically. Oh, can't talk today. Who I am, and then the world responds kindly. Okay. I've overcome that obstacle or roadblock or that chapter in my life. Now it's time to start writing a new chapter. So that's kind of how I viewed that mentally. But again, really just came down to creative differences. I want to start doing more things, take my channel in a different brand. I'm embarking on more creative endeavors. Again, when I was doing a lot of the red pill stuff, I wasn't into music that much, but now I'm leaning more and more into it. And the more I lean into it, the better I'm getting. And that creates that positive feedback loop to where like, okay, now I'm really enjoying it. And again, it just kind of lights up my spirit. So it's something that I definitely don't want to, put on the back burner while I'm doing other things. My professional life takes a lot of my time too. The Gringo Guides brand, I'm helping plan events and have high net worth consulting clients here that want to bring businesses to Mexico. So a lot of that takes a lot of time and bandwidth. And then sometimes I need some time for myself too. I say that music was my little special time for myself, but my vocal coach is very good. She's like, you're selfish. She's like, you need to share it with the world. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Guess that's a new way to think about it.
Yeah.
She's like, why do you only get to enjoy it? I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of a nice compliment too. That's not directly a compliment.
No, you kind of owe it to, the world to share the talents, and the inspiration you receive through music. It's like your way of paying it forward. Hey, I felt so inclined to, sing and dance. So here I am. It's really like you were saying, it's in your authenticity. So that's really cool.
And one thing I've always noticed too, like I was overweight as a kid, so I got like really into the gym thing for a while. But again, 7-8 years ago, I'm at the point where I haven't figured out. Pretty much no matter what I do, I've internalized the process because I still document everything. I'm still learning new things, and I've learned within this last year that no matter what I do, my body's just going to stay exactly the same, which is cool. Like I've got that down. I don't have to think about that anymore. I go to the gym every day, but it's like, you wake up, you brush your teeth, take a shower, it's kind of one of those things. The dating thing became like that. I don't have to think about it anymore. It just just is, but music, I'm still in that process. Like, ooh, I'm exploring new territory. But one thing I've noticed that when you get into the gym thing, it's like, okay, you're preparing a physical physique or a body that grounds you in the physical world. But the music thing, it lights up your spirit. It takes you more into spirituality. At least I don't know if that's your experience, but I've started saying that music is a personification of the human soul, or that could be art in general. I date a couple girls that are visual artists, and the way they can just put something out is like, oh my God, like that came from your head. Like, well, no, it didn't come from my head. It flowed through me. Like, oh, yep. And have you noticed that too? Like when you're like really jamming, you get into a flow state.
Oh yeah, no,
Your whole body's vibrating. You're like, whoa, Jaron stepped away for a minute. What the hell was that?
no, it's definitely spiritual. Even in the recording booth, like, I'll take my keyboard in there and start recording vocals or something, and you hear it back. For recording, it's a lot different. Like there's start, stop. But when you hit one line just perfectly, and you're like, oh yeah, it's like, it's like that song on Blink 182, "Where Are You?" And everyone's like, oh, it's just like it's a super gnarly vibe, and there's really nothing like it once you hit like a musical high. It's kind of like a spiritual high, just like you said. So yeah,
I've noticed that
I'm right there.
With some of my falsettos, I'm constantly trying to refine my technique to hit higher notes, sustain them longer, not scoop them or anything like that, and then not exhaust myself as much. And then I'm getting more into like volume control and different dimensions of my voice. But it's nice. Things that used to be really hard, it's like, oh, here it comes. Like, let's go for it now. It's just right out of you. It's like a musical accent or a detail. It's nothing, and you're like, ooh, that was effortless, and it's beautiful at the same time.
No, I hear you. Definitely, there's nothing like it. I mean, that's why obviously both our careers are steering toward music. Is it's like one of the most powerful things in the world, and one of the things I'm really grateful for is I get to share it with other people. And believe it or not, it's a growing industry. Like now, obviously, with consumerism's made it available for everybody. It used to be you had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to print a record.
They were gatekeepers. I was looking earlier, like, because I'm a vinyl record guy. It's not that expensive to get like a pretty good batch of vinyls pressed. So I'm gonna be throwing that to you in the creative brief for the doc. Like I want to ideally do it for a vinyl application too. Obviously, it'll have to be distributed digitally. Not everyone has records set up. I'm a dork. I have like old shit all over the living room here, and the living room is now slowly turning into a live recording studio or like a podcast studio too. Because obviously I do this thing as well.
But yeah, no, it's nowadays, you have a 13-year-old with a laptop that can just make a hit and make millions of dollars off a Cubase or Ableton or something, so it's the industry is definitely changing back into the hands of the artist, which is cool, especially if you do well.
I think that is absolutely amazing. I know, and I gripe about it sometimes too. Like, all right, the state of modern music, but let me refrain there. It's more of the state of modern mainstream music. I think a lot of it is trash, but every now and then you'll get some real good stuff out there. But the fact that, as you mentioned, a 13-year-old with Cubase and a keyboard can throw together a pretty sick track in the comfort of his or her own home, you're like, that's really opening it up to everyone. Now I'm hoping that this comes like gets more in the red pill type stuff, but like this whole degeneracy culture that is huge in the US right now, and it's been huge for a couple decades, it's starting to emerge in Mexico. It's not as bad as the US, but it's starting to head in that direction to where like just low IQ, like not like kind of creatively bankrupt musical ideas, visual art ideas or whatever. I think that there will be a renaissance or a resurgence at some point in our lifetime, because as you mentioned, everyone can be an artist nowadays. And yeah, you hear people say that, oh, Chat GPT will take away from that. But I use Chat GPT a lot too in my career to like streamline workflows or whatever. I'm a corporate marketing consultant by trade, but it doesn't take away the human element. I can have it
creatively. It's like a 3-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, but I can have it. I can have it research. I can have it organize ideas for me, outline things. I can give it some basic prompts to where it creates kind of a roadmap of where I want to go, but I still have to punch everything up. AI is nowhere near as good as I am as a copywriter, and I don't think it ever will be, because again, you can't replace the human spirit.
Yeah, algorithms suck, and try telling it to write you a song. Ask 300 different computers to like write you a song about a certain subject, and it's like roses are red, violets are blue type stuff. Like it's just not as complex as people say it is. And I
Yeah.
see commercials about AI too, and like half of the stuff that I see in the AI commercial is something that a human made. It's not something that's like the AI made.
Yeah. Or I've noticed too, I subscribe to a lot of marketing stuff. So Neil Patel, like SEO specialist, Uber Suggest,
Mhm.
he did something the other day that came across my inbox. What was it? Oh, I didn't remember what it was. Oh, that a certain percentage, like a sizable percentage of people are now using AI instead of a search engine. And I think that's the correct way
Mhm.
to understand. That's kind of how I use it too. It's more of a research tool for me rather
Mhm.
than Googling. I mean, I did that earlier, like, first steps to record an album, or like, what do I start with? Well, I went to Google. Yeah, their algorithm does whatever, but I just want the information. So I asked AI, and it was like, okay, organize it this way. Okay, what does a 14-week plan look like? What does this look like? And then you can ask it more specific questions. But again, it's more of a research tool. I'm never would I publish that and be like, hey, this is the definitive guide here.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's like using Rhyme Dictionary to write a song. It's a good tool, but it's not something that's, use this AI bot to do all your stock trading and you'll make $10,000 every 5 minutes. It's
Uh-huh.
like, it's not really working that way.
So when you write lyrics, do you actually have to go through line by line and do it, or does it depend? Because sometimes I'll be improvising, they just come out, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope I was recording that, because like there's like a fully fleshed out almost song there. Other times it's like I have the progression and I have a cool melody and kind of whistle it, and then it's like, I need some words to it. What do we do here?
Yeah, a lot of it is like scatting. Like you can make some
Mm.
weird noises, studio writing, and be like, and then you're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. What words have the same amount of synonyms that will make that
Mhm.
melody come to light? And then you're like, oh, I got to make it rhyme too. Ah, but that doesn't even make any sense. It's not even part of the song. So I'm going to go back. And so, each line is one that I really like to take care of. But every once in a while, I'll flesh out like 2 or 3 lines in one take. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. Let's just print that. Like, that's the one we want to use. So,
And you don't necessarily have to rhyme. I know I see a meme go around every now and then. It's an older one, but every now and then it makes its way back to my feed. It's like the mastery of T-Pain to rhyme. What is it? Mansion with Wisconsin.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I'll just like I'll intentionally just not rhyme because I'll be like, oh, well, this sounds cool. It sounds cool in the context, and it's far enough away from that line that I don't think it needs to rhyme. So
I
I'll
noticed
kind of
I
go
was
with
in
that.
the, I was in the gym today. My brain started writing the lyrics to a Spanish song, a song that I've never played or had before. So in the middle of my set, I'm like, "Ooh, hold on!" My training partner is like, "What are you
Mhm.
doing?" I was like, "I gotta write some lyrics in Spanish." That never happens. It's probably because I played last night and I was thinking about it this morning, and I knew I had the interview with you, and then I was in the gym and there's music in the background in Spanish. My brain just started spit lines in Spanish. I'm like, but I found that some of the Spanish musical ideas I fleshed out, they're a little easier lyrically because it's already a musical language. It's a very metered language, naturally, kind of like iambic pentameter for you Shakespeareans out there. So as a feature
Mhm.
of the language, like, oh yeah, Spanish is actually pretty easy to write for. English, not so much. It's more of a stressed language on specific words. I do have a question for you that came from my Instagram live. How
Okay.
big of a difference does music make when doing it at the studio versus doing it at home? Well, you have a home studio though.
Well, I have a home studio and I have this studio here, which is,
Is that the
I'd
downtown
say,
one in Sac?
well, this one's in North Sac now, but yeah, same thing. But, but yeah, I
No,
mean,
no Sac.
yeah, no Sac. Exactly. Um, I would say it's really important to make sure that your environment is acoustically sound because you could have, you know, a microphone that's $200 in an acoustically treated room and it'll sound great. But you can have a $10,000 microphone. If you record on the side of the freeway, it's going to sound like crap.
You could have
So,
Mexico City out your window, so you have a
yeah,
dynamic mic that you like have to get up into.
yeah, exactly. And I'm putting together a little bit of a course or a master class, if you will, on from which mics to buy to how to record and mix your stuff to sound exactly how we do it in the studio. So
Oh, awesome.
That's eventually I'll come out with it. But in the meantime, acoustics are really important. Just make sure your room's quiet. You know, if there's stuff on the outside, put pillows in your window, whatever it takes to make the sound good. But
Mhm.
if you're inexperienced in recording and mixing, I'd recommend in the short term, if you're just trying to record a song, go to a place where it's professional. I don't know what city you're in, but find a spot that charges a decent amount per hour, that has a really nice room to record in, and you'll be blown away by the difference. So,
Yeah, I've always wondered that in the place I'm in. I can tell some of my YouTube videos, it's a large open place, and Mexico has hard
mhm,
surfaces everywhere, and they're very squared and angular surfaces. So it's a very live environment. But
mhm,
for me, I've found that a lot of times that means I don't have to play as hard and I don't have to really shout as much. It's a large space, so you still need some volume to fill it. But
mhm,
my ear starts to tune into like some of the details that the acoustic environment provides here too, which I really quite like. But I know from a recording perspective, I'm probably not in the best place, but I'd be curious to ask. I know I tried my
mhm.
hand. I had a job in Houston one time, and we had to build a recording studio or a podcast studio. So we just did like a perfect 8x8 cube, and then
Yeah.
did the alternating thickness of like double drywall on each side with the green goop, and then the rock salt in the middle, and all that. And we actually got it down to like acceptable recording levels for like an in-office podcast application. But I think if I recall the terminology correctly, but during the time it was sound deadening or like sound dampening versus sound absorbing. I'm trying to remember the two different things, because you have like the acoustic panels. I think that reflects
Mhm.
the sound or like dissipates the sound, right? But you have deadening too, which was just mass. Like, okay, more green goop, more drywall, more green goop, more
Yeah.
drywall.
So deadening and dampening is very similar, actually. You're probably thinking of sound containment, which
Okay.
is, so you have deadening or dampening, which is absorption on the walls. You know, if the sound hits a wall, you can absorb the sound with fluff, pillows, whatever it is, or diffuse
Mhm.
it and break it up the sound, because you don't want the sound bouncing back and forth in this room, because that's when you get that really echoey, ugly sound, and you
Yep.
hear the room sound in your recording, which you almost never want, especially if you're going to use like reverb in post. But then you have sound containment, which stops sound from transferring through walls. So you're talking
That's
about
what
the
it is. Yeah.
green goo. You know, if there's a drummer playing next door, the only way to really contain the sound is to put a bunch
Tell
of
them to
cinder
stop.
blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, cinder blocks. Yeah, we
Concrete.
looked in that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's you know, the only way to get like the quietest recording possible. You can also get rid of a lot of problems by just recording at night, because no one's up, everyone's, you know, home from work. You know, you're not going to hear
Yeah.
traffic outside.
Yep. I usually do these streams later in the day. It's a holiday week here, so there's like not a lot of traffic. At nighttime too,
Mhm.
when I record, I live in a nicer neighborhood in Mexico City, so during the peak hours, like the commute to and from work, those are obviously louder time periods. But the minute the sun goes down and traffic clears up, it is really nice and quiet in this neighborhood. So I get
That's
some
so
good
cool.
stuff in. Now we have another question here. Don't women prefer pop punk more than men? Pretty much aimed at them all emo like. I don't necessarily know the answer to that. What's your take on that?
Don't women prefer pop punk more than men?
Yeah, it's pop punk for chicks. You know what?
Oh,
It might be a generational thing because
probably.
as we mentioned earlier, I didn't ask for your age, but I'm assuming you're probably about where I'm at. I'm a millennial. I was born in '87. It's almost my birthday, so I'll be 37 here soon. Ooh, getting up there.
Yeah,
But
you're like
it,
3 years older than me.
yeah, in the '90s, pop punk was huge. I mean, it was
Yeah.
everywhere. Everyone listened to it. I
It was
mean,
on every video game, it was on every radio station, like huge. It's like it's probably what, like when we listen to our parents listening to like the
okay.
70s, 80s music.
Yeah, it seems like he's older than us. When I was going to punk shows in the '80s, zero women there. I think, yeah, punk in the '80s, I think, is way different than the pop punk of the '90s.
Mhm. Yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, it was huge, and then, you know, there was a little bit of a drop off, but I still know plenty of people. And the chicks that like that type of music are like awesome.
Yeah, they're usually pretty cool chicks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten into I had never understood it before. I think I moved to California in early 2010s or so. I had buddies that were into EDM or like techno or dance or house or any of that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the years, I've gotten more and more to EDM to where I went to a day rave on Sunday and then I'm going to another event this Saturday. I really enjoy that format. I still love classic rock. I still love bands that can go out and jam, but I actually enjoy kind of what's going on in some of the electronic music spaces. But again, I have the record player and the I always use old analog stereo equipment. So even like Madonna's Immaculate Collection, one of my favorite albums, just those synthesizers from that 80s era
Oh yeah.
through original equipment, it just sounds so good. I never liked it
Yeah.
before until I got on the actual setup. Like, oh wow, like I understand why this is popular.
Yeah, no, I mean, sorry, I'm like looking at the chat there.
Yeah, here,
No,
let's get this up there. I'm pretty sure it's still alive. There are those of us that won't let the music die, no matter what day it is.
yeah.
See, and then Bill, I hear you more into industrial, but some EDM is cool.
Yeah, EDM is actually what got me started into the production aspect of music. I really loved that, you know, one of my favorite artists in like 7th, 8th grade or whatever was Owl City. I'm sure you've heard of Owl City.
Yeah.
And he talked about the concept of having a whole orchestra at your fingertips. And it's true, you know, you can add all the instruments in one at a time, and then you kind of get into this composition and you can make some really cool dance music. And that's before I was really proficient at guitar or, you know, drums and piano. I would just program it all on the keyboard because that's all I had, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure you starting out, you just had your little USB mic and a keyboard, and that's it. And
yeah,
it's awesome to learn composition too. So that was huge in my development as an artist.
I like EDM for the vibe too. So if you guys follow my Instagram, I go to a lot of these rooftop parties. So just beautiful day, pretty people, breeze, sun's going down, just good vibes all around. And the music really does help that out. I still love rock music, but I don't go out to maybe some more of the rocking parts of town, so to speak. Later at night, and there's a lot of people just drinking booze and chain smoking. Like I like going out with pretty people and good vibes. That thing over there, yeah. So yeah, I think that's maybe why I got a little into EDM too. But I'm definitely starting to play around with more stuff, and I think when we have follow-up conversations, I'll need some help. You coaching me along, okay? Like when I show up to record with you, what do I already need to have prepared? And then I'm very disciplined and regimented, and when I'm seeking a goal, I never not achieve a goal, but it's like, all right, I have to structure it all out. So day to day, what am I doing to get to that point? But I think that'll be a fun process.
Yeah, I mean, just consistency is the most important part. I mean, little tiny mistakes you can usually chip out in the edit, but the most consistent that you can be, the better. And this day and age, like even on pop punk tracks, they're using like digital drums. You know, almost everything's in the box except for the instruments you bring in. And I could probably get a drum kit in here, actually. I know a couple people with drum kits, they'll bring them in. I used to have one in the studio, but everyone would play on it and just waste time during the sessions. So I had to get rid of it. But
it's very funny.
Yeah, it's an easy process. You'll be surprised how quick it goes. And you know, what's your main instrument that you play when you're besides guitar? Do you play any other instruments?
I used to play quite a few stringed instruments, even goofy ones like mandolin. I dated a Tongan girl in high school, so her family's Polynesian.
Nice.
So I played the ukulele a bit. Haven't touched any other stringed instruments in years, but that's more of an effect of my lifestyle. So I did the digital nomad thing for 3 years. Had a baby Taylor travel guitar. Now that I actually have a place in Mexico City, I'm still planting my roots here. I've been here for like 3 years now, so I'm starting to bring guitars down from the U.S. I still like your full body or your like even jumbo style guitars. So now I think, what is it? It's a Yamaha something. I forget the number, but it was like a $1,200 guitar. But for the price point, it sounds really nice.
Yamaha does a good job.
They do, yeah. I know that even was it like the FG 800 or whatever it is. That's when I was looking at. I think it was like a $300 price point. It's like, wow, this plays nice for a $300 guitar. And then for Christmas, I think my mom watched Public and be like, yeah, when I was a kid, I always wanted to play instruments, but no one cared about it. And she's doing pretty well now. So she's like, here's a couple $1,000, go find a guitar and some gear in that price point. Merry Christmas. I'm like, all right.
Oh,
So I wanted to
nice.
find like the best sounding guitar within that budget. And yeah, it's a Yamaha, whatever the hell it is. You'll see it on my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. You'll see it on there. I'll start posting more videos. But yeah, no, it's just guitar and vocals for now. But I'm actually really pleased with the sound. So I'm wondering, should I start playing around with new arrangements or new whatever? Just come down raw and then see what we can't come up with together. I'm kind of open to whatever ideas. I'm a bit of a minimalist too, so I'm like, all right, like with the few tools I have at my disposal, I'll really maximize what I can get out of it.
Yeah, if you have like the bare bones, like if you have the structure set up, I'm pretty anal about structure. Like I like there to be like verse, chorus, stuff, and I like to write it out and make sure that we're staying on a grid. That way you can really make it pop. There's a lot of people are like, I don't want a click track. I don't want this. I just want it to be natural. And then at that point, if you're just like, I want to play and sing at the same time, and it's really easy to start delving into glorified cell phone recordings at that point, because then you can't put loops down, you can't do other stuff, and you can't really add the special sparkle that you can with modern technology on the track. So
I'm undergoing that mental process with myself right now, to where like for me, guitar and singing, it was an emotional outlet at the end of the day. Just jam, just have a good time, get some friends around. I've got bongos here in the living room. Just all Latins can lay down percussion. Like I know I don't like stereotype on Gringo Guides, but like it's true. If you don't believe me, get a Colombian girl in your car, just put on like a salsa song, just click it up a bit, and then just bit by bit, and then as the music goes, you'll see her body to start to move. They all have it. They all have it in their blood. So like I have bongos and percussion here, and they'll bang it out. But I have noticed my vocal coach. She's a professional. She's a pop star down here, actually, in the Spanish speaking world. She's hit 3 million subs on TikTok. So congrats, nice. Cameron. Wow. But
congrats.
She's really good, because she's a coach, like a high school football coach. She's really on it. She's like, do your click track, use your metronome, like make sure you do this, like watch your breathing, watch your feet, watch your posture, watch your head, don't do this, don't look that way, like mic technique. And then the more and more I dial it in, I'm like, oh yeah, it does sound way better. The more
you don't realize how crappy you are until you like really start focusing on making it perfect. You're like, oh geez, like, and then look back in a year and you'll be so shocked how far you've come, especially now that you have a coach. It's like night and day difference after you've been practicing like with a coach.
Yeah, and I was never bad before. I was better than any natural person. I did again have that like nascent innate talent, but I just hadn't started to nurture it or even begin to polish it. I think maybe now I'm just starting to polish it, which that thought went through my head today. Like, am I ready to do an album? Like, I don't know. It was like, if I record it now, a year from now, I'm going to think it's crap. But like Gringo Guides, a lot of people don't know. I actually published a thesis on that topic too, like 10, 12 years ago already now. I haven't read my thesis since it was published. Like I just know I'm going to hate it. Like I can't look at it, but it gets cited all the time. I get the email notifications that people are citing it. I'm like, all right, I guess it's a pretty good piece of research.
Nice. No, yeah, it's looking back is always fun. Like I said, like earlier on the podcast, it's always funny to hear my old stuff, and I'm all like blood, sweat, and tears writing this track out, and it's like a joke track. When I look back at it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why did I even put this on YouTube or whatever it was? But yeah,
awesome comment. Lots of good banjo players these days. I think I have a bluegrass playlist on Spotify that every now and then I'll throw on. Which there's some good sounds there too. I think last night. So I'm going through. I have like a track list that I'll submit everything to you because I want your professional guidance on this, and I want to make sure I don't waste your time. But I have a track list, and like some songs that I've been playing for years. I'm like, let's start to kind of take them apart and put them back together and try this. So I think I did like what was it? I forgot the name of the bass technique that like a lot of bluegrass music uses. So I started off as a bass player when I was a kid. So I build the bass line first, and then I construct the chords, and then I have my pinky do like some little melodic things on the string. A lot of times to fill in to where my voice lacks, and then once the guitar's then there in real time, then I start layering in the vocals. live. So I forgot what it was. It was like a little like double cross or double, some kind of like double whatever bass line, but it sounded
Mhm.
pretty cool. That I remember. It's like, oh, that came from my bluegrass playlist. So we are coming up on the top of the hour. Do you have anything else to add? If not, just let people know what you're up to, where to find you, and if you have any takeaway message for the good folks out here.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as the creative endeavor goes, we tried to, roundabout hone this in on creativity and the importance of it in your daily life, I guess. And I found incredible fulfillment through music, and it doesn't need to be music, but as far as my creative outlet, it's just resonated with me so well. And we, like we talked about, we owe it to the people of the world who
Mhm.
love music to inspire them the way we've been inspired, and uh, keep practicing, hop off the ledge, commit, stay confident, and you can make something really beautiful. And it's changed my life. It's changed my whole confidence level. It's changed my success in business. And I don't think I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without music. So
Yeah.
feel
Well,
goods at the
you have to
end.
put yourself out there. I used to always say like I'm an extroverted introvert, but now I'm like, no, I think I'm extroverted now. And the music does that because you have to project yourself. There's no
Yeah, it'll
other way around
transform
it.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just walk around that in your daily life, like, oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, it's up.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
you're just vibing from your last jam session. So, yeah, definitely. Again, music is the creative outlet or avenue that Mike and I both chose. But if you're visually inclined artistically, if you're into like poetry, I know a girl in LA. She's a model. She's beautiful, but she does poetry too. She does like slam poetry. So whatever it is for you. And as a kid, I used to etch out little. I was into satire, do like little satirical comic strips and circulate them
Hmm.
around class. And I got kicked out of school all the time for that. Loved all that kind of stuff too. I was a terrible artist, but it's like they're like little stick figure type things. But it was the commentary and the way I kind of storyboarded the sequences, and they were like really just punchy little pieces of satire that were quite popular when I was a kid. So, whatever that looks like for you, I think musically, I'm still trying to like kind of hone in my sound, but it's starting to feel more and more like me, to where I don't have to think anymore. Like just like the gym, like got that
Hmm.
down, don't have to think. So, whatever that looks like for you, really, as we mentioned earlier, it's more the process. It's that self-discovery phase. And then music or art or film or whatever that is for you is just the outlet. So definitely, guys and gals, check into that if you haven't done so. Bill, I still love going to concerts, mostly small club shows, cheaper than festivals. I like the whole festival thing still. Like I like to block out the whole weekend and then again get out there and just meet and greet people. But very
Yeah.
intimate concert venues, I do like. We have Palacio de Bellas Artes here in Mexico City. The symphony, oh my god, it's like a 500-year-old building, like Spanish architecture. Just acoustically, it's just beautiful to the point where I went with a date a couple weeks ago, and we were
Mm.
sitting there, and I was like, I don't want to be rude, but I'm falling asleep. And then she's like, me too. But it's just so beautiful. It just takes you into more of serene, heaven-like landscape. It was, I mean, it was almost
Hmm.
transcendental, the experience. I love those types of venues too. So, like I say, sound in general, music is the personification of the human soul. A lot of bands I like will no longer play the Bay Area. I have too much crime with equipment getting stolen. Oh yeah, I know. It's so
What
sad
else
what's
is
going
new?
on in some of it's so sad what they've done to our beautiful West Coast. But
Hmm.
come to Mexico City, actually. A lot of California people, creative people are coming down here. This channel will focus more on that. There is an emerging kind of what would be equivalent to like a beatnik class in the 1960s, but that like creative, intellectual, academic type class. You do get like your tech bros and your fintech guys down here. There's a really cool emerging creative scene and class of people internationally that are all coming down here. So definitely come check out Mexico City if you have the chance. One more question, Mike, have you done any live shows for bands as well?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, like I said, one of my buddies, he's in a live show, and they tour all around Sacramento, the Bay Area, even down to Southern California. Um, it's about the same concept. Are you talking about mixing or performance?
This is a YouTube live comment, so I just asked, has Mike done any live shows for bands as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all the same. Mixing, recording. Uprise has quickly become like one of the more popular recording studios in Northern California.
Really?
So
Oh, congrats.
yeah,
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 you
it's
produce quite a bit of stuff. I mean, diverse stuff from a genre perspective.
So yeah, we do everything from hip hop, rock, pop punk. It was kind of a heavy discussion that we've been talking about because it's music that I initially loved to start creating. But yeah, we do everything. We do commercials, we do video. It's become like a media studio where, you know, audio turned into music,
Uh,
videos turned into commercials, and now doing TV stuff, Netflix contracts. And so it's
that's
really
awesome.
awesome. Yeah. Oh yeah, look me up, I'll plug myself here.
Yeah, yeah,
Uprise
definitely.
Recording.
Yeah, definitely
Uprise
plug yourself.
Recording. My name is Mike, and we have Chase working with us too, and we love to help you guys out and make your idea come to life. It'll sound like it's on the radio.
Yeah, and then here, so we're gonna wrap this real quick,
Yeah.
guys and gals. This actually, so this new time slot on my channel, it's not new anymore. I've been doing it for like a month or two now, but this is a lead in for a private call we have for a men's group that I help manage. So if you are interested in that, really just for the information, just hit me up on Instagram at Jaron Scott. But that is a group of like-minded men looking up to level up in all areas of life by building lives worth living and loving. That is the menofnow.us, menofnow.us. Go to that landing page, you'll get more information. We do have a private call behind the paywall, so we are uncensored, we are raw, and we are without filter, so we can really dive in to some of the weeds in terms of things that might be troubling you guys out there. Again, we don't have to deal with the YouTube censors or anything. That is behind a paywall. There is a monthly membership fee. However, if you recruit people to the group, you get 50% monthly recurring revenue. So it is set to just really help other guys out there. Come in, you can give as much as you get, and then when everyone does that, well, we have some really cool stuff happening or going on there. So if you're interested in doing that, I'm going to segue to a live call now that is behind the paywall. Hit me up Instagram at Jaron Scott if you're interested in that. I'll let you join the live call just kind of as a sample or a preview. If you go to menofnow.us, there is a 7-day free trial, but a lot of times it's easier, just hit me up on my DM. I'll jump over that call here in a minute, and I'll introduce you to the guys, and we'll get you going. And then Mike, in terms of me and you, yeah, let's do a follow-up call here soon so we can like start setting dates and times. And again, when I visualize something, I'm very structured, so I want to make sure that I'm giving you what you need to do your job effectively. And then that feedback, obviously, if you've worked with other artists before, in terms of kind of keeping me on the right rails there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, just text me, we'll put something together, and
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to having you. Well, I'd say come down, but you'd be come up and record an album or something.
it's so weird because I grew up in Washington State. So as a kid, it was always, oh, we're going down to California. But now, like Mexico City's down here, like California, it's 3 hours to get to California flying. It's like way up there. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird how your mental point of reference changes things. So I'll be going up to California.
Exactly. But yeah, man, we'll keep in touch, and thanks so much for having me. I appreciate what you do. There's a lot of men that are looking up to you, and you're changing lives. Absolutely. So thanks so much,
Yeah,
dude.
definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I was talking to my brand manager, he's my roommate now. He has been for a bit. And
yeah, say hi to Joel for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think I was saying something along the lines like, "Oh, my channel's not growing the way I'd like it to." We do get in some really good stuff, but I've noticed lately, it's putting me out there for really cool people to reach out to me. Like all of my friend circle, all of my gym buddies, guys. I can travel anywhere in the world. I'll just put a story on Instagram. Someone's like, "Hey, man, I live here," and like, "Oh," and they're always super cool. So, okay, yeah, I've learned to ignore the vanity metrics, but I'm glad we met. Like you mentioned, the internet has made music accessible to everyone, and it also allows you to connect with anyone in the world too. So I'm glad that YouTube has been here for me to meet you, and then here soon to start collaborating together in real life. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and thankful for the fact that I do have fans or people, subscribers, followers, guys that just dig my stuff that are like you, because we're all kind of in this together.
No, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, absolutely. Same to you. And I don't really do live stream. I don't know how to end it. Do I just hang up on you?
No, yeah. No, I'll go ahead and bring it home. It's one of those things, like I mentioned in music. I'm like, all right, song's over. where do I go now? How do I end it? I think for 10 minutes, I've been trying to wrap it up. So we will go ahead and wrap it up. Guys, be sure to check out Mike at Uprise Recording, Instagram at Jaron Scott for anything and everything at all. If you want to jump on the Men of Now call, now is the time to do it. Just hit me up on Instagram. I'll get you right in there and we'll join you live and take any of your questions or any of that stuff. And that being said, I want to thank you all for stopping on by. And until next time, I shall bid you all farewell.